I'm Adam Garson. I'm a partner on the tech team in New York, and I'm joined by Scott Brighton, who is the CEO of Bonterra. Scott, thanks for joining me. Scott, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, happy to. Scott Brighton, CEO of Bonterra. Would consider myself a technology optimist. Been in and around software for my entire life, it would seem. Got my first computer when I was in sixth grade, taught myself how to program, got a computer engineering degree, went to work for Bell Labs, took a brief period as a management consultant, and then went back into software. I've been a software CEO for different companies since 2008 and joined Bonterra in 2023.
How'd you end up at Bonterra?
You know, I was looking for a new adventure, and my previous role had involved really just a tremendous relationship with the owner, which I would ascribe, 50% of the success we had at Aurea was to that relationship. And so finding good partners to work with was the critical piece that I was looking for. This was a vertical market software company, which had always been my passion. It had some scale. It had mission critical software. And it sort of struck close to home a little bit because my wife, Colleen, was the longstanding executive director of a nonprofit in Austin. Bonterra provides software for nonprofits. So it was sort of a way to connect a professional and personal passion, if you will.
We are thrilled to have you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what Bonterra does?
So we are software for social good broadly. And what that means is we provide software for nonprofits that help them fundraise, manage their relationships with donors, and drive their service delivery. But we also provide software to the folks that fund nonprofits. This could include corporations, foundations, government entities, helping them give money away in the form of grants, or in the case of corporations, employee engagement, volunteerism programs, that kind of thing.
So maybe to bring it to life, if you were a small nonprofit or a large corporation, how does Bonterra show up differently for each one of those customer archetypes?
You know, it's interesting because if you're a small nonprofit, you are resource constrained is your sort of dominant existential issue. And so what we have to do for small nonprofits is make our technology incredibly easy to use, right? Because they don't have IT organizations to support them. And we also have to provide surrounding resources so that, we can help them do the job, just not use the software, fundraise and whatnot. If you're a large enterprise, what you're looking for is scalability, stability, security. And so we have to provide enterprise-grade technology that a very large global enterprise can feel confident in is going to work at scale for all of their employees in these big visible programs that they run.
We've got all sides of this network between the donors, individual donors, corporate donors, nonprofits, and so I want to come back to that. We've grown EBITDA pretty materially, but that journey hasn't been a straight line. Right. Maybe just walk through a bit of that past and how we brought Bonterra to where it is today.
I sort of see us in really now the third phase of the journey. When I joined in 2023, the real emphasis had to be on building the infrastructure of a company of our scale. And what that meant was getting the right leadership talent in place. And it also meant building processes, systems, structures that could scale to a company that was, 4 times bigger than any of the individual businesses that formed Bonterra. Now I think we're in the phase where we're now building on top of that infrastructure. And that is enabling us to focus really less internally and more externally on the market. How are we going to compete? Where are we going to innovate? How are we going to dominate? How are we going to transform philanthropy? Candidly, all of the work that we did building the infrastructure is what's enabled us to both run the business at substantially higher EBITDA, but also be confident we can now grow materially.
Yeah, it's a very exciting story. And you alluded to the fact that we brought together 3 businesses. What was the hardest thing about bringing the businesses together ultimately, and what are some of the lessons learned?
For me, it's always making sure you're clear on what is magical about each of the businesses that you're buying or acquiring, and making sure that that is sustained and protected. And then anything that's not magical, that you're leveraging and combining to create those economies of scale. And getting that balance right is really the key.
Some of what you're alluding to is around prioritization, and it's really important, obviously, to understand the things that you should be doing, but also critically the things that you shouldn't be doing. And so talk a little bit about that at Bonterra.
Yeah, I think one of the observations I had when I came in was there was a ton of energy in the business, and people were running around doing lots of work, but there really wasn't any focus and clarity on, kind of what to do first. And, success is always bred by doing less better, right? And getting it down to 2 or 3 key priorities. And so really a lot of what we did in the early days was picking what those 2 or 3 things are and kind of relentlessly focusing the company on those. And that is hard to do because items 4, 5, and 6 are really important.
Yeah.
And you want to do them. But you knock those 3 out, then you get the next 3. And over time, as you're building brick by brick by brick, people sort of start to see the value of that because they're like, oh, okay, now we have these layers of infrastructure and we can do these higher order things that when we were trying to do before were just too hard to do.
And now we're at a point where we're accelerating the M&A engine. We just announced a strategic acquisition. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Very excited about this one. We acquired a company called Deed. Deed is on the funder side of our network. And what Deed brings is world-class employee engagement technology. If you look at what's happening on the funder side, it's really dominated by the employee engagement component these days. This is getting employees to give or volunteer. And that experience has increasingly become more consumer grade. If you want to get employees engaged, you need technology that makes it easy for them and gamifies their participation and other things like that. And this technology brings all of that. And so that, coupled with our sort of enterprise grade grant solution, which is more sort of classic controls and workflow, which is more appropriate for grants, is going to be a fantastic combination for corporates.
Let's talk about technology for nonprofits.
Yeah.
And how nonprofits are using technology to drive outcomes, and how we're delivering AI solutions now to our customers.
Yeah. The most fundamentally stark observation I had about nonprofits when I joined the company is that they are effectively running at the for-profit equivalent of an 80% margin. They have 0 resources. And because of that, software, even really easy to use software, often isn't the most ideal solution because there's a learning curve. It requires following workflows and menus and getting data in it to get value out of it. The emergence of AI, I believe, is more transformative for nonprofits than it will be for for-profits because it enables them to expand capacity rather than just make existing capacity more efficient. And so now all of a sudden, a nonprofit deals with one of our agents and asks it to do work, design a fundraising campaign, segment my donors, review this grant application, rather than having to, navigate your way through complex menus. And it can do that work autonomously or semi-autonomously to feel like you've actually got additional fundraisers on staff. So AI is going to be transformative, and it hits right at the heart of what I think is the most important problem that nonprofits have, which is they just have no resources.
And we're starting to roll out our AI solutions now. Why don't you tell a customer story or an anecdote? You were telling me about one earlier. The impact that you're already starting to see with our solutions.
Yeah, it has been truly astounding sort of hearing some of the feedback from customers about Bonterra Q, which is our agentic AI platform. Bonterra Q is designed to do exactly what we were just talking about, which is do work. It's not a chat bot. It's agents that do specific tasks that nonprofits do. And we had one big nonprofit that had a open rec for a director of development, which is a very important lead fundraising job for the nonprofit. And they were in the middle of a campaign and they were stressed about the fact that they didn't have this role in place. They turned to Q to essentially serve as the director of development during this time. And it was getting tax receipts and segmenting the donors and doing outreach. And the campaign ended up being more successful than last year. It speaks to the heart of that sort of resource expansion impact.
Yeah. It's incredibly powerful and impactful stuff for our customers. Where do you see Bonterra in 2 years from now?
Yeah, there's, I think two vectors that I think we're really working on. One is our network, which is sort of bringing nonprofits and funders together and making it easier for them to find each other and build trust-based relationships. And then the second is agentic AI, which is designed to expand their capacity and extend those relationships a bit more effectively. And so I think, increasingly we're going to look like an agentic AI company where most of our customers are interacting with agents as opposed to software.
Okay, so as you think about the near-term growth opportunity for Bonterra, what's next?
Yeah. So, we have a number of growth vectors. Obviously, the one we've talked about is AI and how I believe that's going to enable us to both take share and also capture more of the value we create. Another is international, Adam. As you know, most of our business is domestic today, but our large global funder customers want to be able to operate across international nonprofits. And so we've got sort of designs ultimately on expanding our ability to build our network with some of those big international nonprofits. So the international expansion would be another one. There are adjacent markets, faith-based education that we're not really in that I think we'll be looking at. And then I think lastly, if you look at the constituencies, we have a big presence with nonprofits. We have a big presence with funders, but there's another part of the chain, which is the individual participants that we don't really engage today. And, I think there's an opportunity to expand into that market, get access to individual giving and individual givers more directly.
And how do you think about the interplay between organic growth and inorganic growth?
Yeah, I think I look at it, I suspect very similar to the way you look at it, which is what is going to be the most effective way to deploy capital to drive value creation. And sometimes that is going to be M&A because it's just faster and you're going to lose opportunity if you try to build it organically. And other times where, particularly like with agentic AI, where there is no inorganic, that's where you want to put your energy.
I have a few rapid fire questions.
Oh, good.
Biggest myth about nonprofits?
Biggest myth about nonprofits is that small means low impact, right? There are, I think one of the strengths of nonprofits is also its weakness. There are 2 million nonprofits in the United States, which is a lot. Most of them are very tiny. But because they're very tiny, they are very focused on a specific micro cause in a geography and get very deep in that particular domain, which is a strength. If you can provide technology that enables them to collaborate more effectively, you unlock their potential.
If you had to delete one metric from dashboards, what would it be and why?
I'll tell you, I love metrics, so this is a very hard one for me. But I would say it would probably be monthly active users, because I think you can get a distorted sense of success by just having people sort of run to your site, log in. Sometimes they're forced to log in. Sometimes they're doing it out of curiosity. You really need a metric that looks at, are they getting value out of their interaction there? And so I always, it's important to dig much deeper than just active users.
Great. Scott, thank you for joining me, and thank you for everything that you've done for Bonterra.
My pleasure. Great partnership with both you, Adam, and Apax and Bonterra.